What's going on, you guys? There's a ton of mistakes you do not want to be making in Once Human, especially early on. There's a lot of things that you can do to actually really speed up your progress. I'm going to go over these 10 things you need to know about Once Human so you don't make some of the mistakes that I did. A big mistake a lot of people are going to make that you should make sure, and I repeat, make sure you are not making this mistake. You are not doing this early, is specifically regarding ammo. So as you unlock more ammo through your memetics, you're going to want to make sure you do not, and I repeat, you do not use AP ammo. You want to use, for instance, only regular ammo. So you can see we have copper ammo here, copper shotgun bullets. These are perfectly fine to use for everything that tier 1 entails, which is where copper ammo would be used. And if you go over here to copper shotgun AP ammo, you get plus 4% damage per shot and plus 4% PSI intensity. Until you hit level 50, it does not matter whatsoever. And you don't want to waste your materials on this ammo because you have to use Stardust Source. The problem with this is as you begin to level and as you get closer to endgame, you might have a lot of Stardust Source right now. And as you get farther in the game and have to upgrade your weapons, craft a lot of new things, you're going to use all of this in the blink of an eye and have none left over. So you don't need to craft AP ammo because it's not needed. For copper, steel, everything up until basically level 50, you do not need this ammo because it really doesn't give you that much damage benefit. And again, it's just going to use up all of your in-game resource because you might not yet realize it's an in-game resource, but it is, and it's extremely important to have. So don't waste it and you can thank me later. So next is where you can find the weapon and armor blueprints. So if you've played already, you notice you've had a certain amount of weapons you can make, and then certain weapons are just completely locked. And I know some of you are wondering, how can you easily unlock these blueprints? Well, there's a couple of different ways. Some different events give you blueprints. Ideally, there's 4 main ways you can unlock blueprints for weapons. The first is going to be possibly completing things like monoliths. You can actually get blueprint rewards through completing monoliths. Sometimes they're more rare, but by doing some of these harder monoliths, you can actually unlock blueprints this way. Quickly, the way the blueprint system works is you unlock blueprint fragments and not the full blueprint themselves. So when you unlock this wildfire frag, or you get some sort of fragments towards it, you have to have, as you can see, 60 total fragments, and usually you get like 10 or 20 at a time. Now, once you get 10 or 20 at a time, you can jump into your blueprint fragment menu, and you can see I have 20 out of 40 here. I have to get 40 of them in order to fuse this and actually unlock the Northern Pike frag. And if we look here at the wrench, see I have 60 out of 40 for the wrench. So if I wanted, I could fuse this and actually use this to unlock the wrench and then begin using it. Additionally, you can do areas like this that have a rift anchor, which is this little green, or it will be gray if you haven't discovered it, and it has a mystical crate. These mystical crates, once you find them in these areas, actually give you fragments towards either armor or weaponry, so you can get a lot of fragments that way by making sure you're collecting these mystical crates throughout each big area that you explore and go to. Now, the other big way is the wish machine. So once you get introduced to it, once you make your way over to Greywater Camp, you can then build a wish machine. So this is the one I have in my home, and you can then click make a wish, and you can actually click one of these different sections. So the trick with this is each one of these different sections opens up as the seasons progress. So as we get to the next part of the season, this one will unlock, and then as we get to the next part of season, the next one will unlock, etc., etc. So you can see we have Starcrom here, which is our basic currency we get from doing a lot of things in the game. Now, one thing you can do here is, since we have Echoes of the Rift unlocked, we can click on this and we can see some of the potential rewards. And currently they're basically all random blueprints. So if we were to play the game here, we would begin to hit these llamas. And as we continue to play, we unlock more and more blueprints for different pieces of armor and weapons, and this is the main way you're going to be unlocking a lot of the different blueprints in the game. Now again, it could be strategic to save up your Starcrom to wait until some of these later tiers for weapons that you really want. For instance, the jackpot here gives us the golden scar. That means you might want to wait until this one unlocks and save up your Starcrom so you can go full out on this to make sure you get that weapon that you really want. The same goes for some of these legendary helmets, the legendary KVD, and other things that you can get via these rewards. Now another big thing with the wish machine that's different from betas is you can actually visit the blueprint shop, meaning you can actually spend a ton, and I mean a ton, of Starcrom to actually make sure you target and get exactly what you want. For instance, all of this legendary gear you can spend 8,000 Starcrom to get and make sure you unlock the armor blueprint without all the gambling, without all the RNG, but you can come in here and actually buy it this way. And you can actually do this for weapons as well, and some lower level weapons. As an example, if we wanted a legendary sniper rifle, we could come in here and unlock the hammer sniper rifle for 8,000 Starcrom instead of gambling for it. So, and another thing, you want to make sure you try not to sometimes put your base just out in the middle of nowhere. And this is because of a couple things. So if you put your base out in the middle of nowhere, in order to teleport somewhere, you need to be at a place with a teleport location close enough to it, like one of these teleportation towers, a main city, or your home. So let's say if you're at your home and it's all the way out here in the middle of nowhere. If you look, it actually takes some currency in the form of essentially our energy to teleport over to Greywater Camp. It only takes 38 because we're right here next to it. Now, let's say we put our house all the way out here in the desert, and then we wanted to teleport all the way down here to, let's say, Deadsville, or we wanted to go to Myers Market. Currently it costs 260, but if we put our house even farther, it's going to cost up in the 300 or 400s. And I'm telling you, as you get to mid and later game, you're going to start running out of this energy fairly quickly, especially if you're teleporting all over the place. And that's because you can see just creating one tier 3 pistol costs 1100 energy, and especially with teleporting everywhere, you'll run out very quickly. So you want to make sure you put your camp earlier on in one of these areas, probably next to the main camp if possible. In Deadsville, this strip right here has a bunch of water, minerals, trees, deer, and everything you need. Once you get to Myers Market, this area also has the exact same thing over here to the bottom left, ton of minerals and everything else. And the same goes for right over here near Greywater Camp. So you have quick, easy access to the camp since you have to go back to it quite a lot without having to waste a ton of energy. Now, one thing you definitely want to do, especially early game, is focus on eating, but not just eating anything, eating good food. That's because different food actually gives you different benefits that are actually very beneficial early on. So you can see if we get any random deer here and we go to our stove, we click on roasted meat. We currently have 29 deer meat here. If we actually cook this deer meat on the stove, not only do we get energy back, but we also get a max stamina boost, meaning we can run, dodge, things like that for a much longer time, basically 25% extra of what we used to be able to do. You see our stamina ring down here. Normally it would only be 1 ring, but now it is 1.25 rings. We have a little bit more stamina to work with, which helps especially just roaming the map, boss fights, etc. There's other good food that you can actually do right off the bat. So you can get pan-fried fish, which gives you plus 10% mining speed. And to get even a steak combo here, that again gives you another max stamina boost. Now, first things first is mining. Now, mining obviously gives you the ore materials you need, as well as all the lumber you're going to use to build obviously your base and a lot of things in the game. I wouldn't waste too much time early on because there's a lot of things you can do to farm that make things way easier and cost you way less time. As a quick example, in your mimetics menu, the greater pickaxes you create, like the copper pickaxe, or even down further such as the bronze pickaxe, give you not only a more durable tool, but actually help you mine rare materials and mine them much faster and more efficiently, meaning you actually mine them faster and get more materials for them. So fairly quickly, I would take your infrastructure to bronze pickaxes, and then shortly after you pass level 10 to steel pickaxes, so you can make a steel pickaxe and mine things much quicker, and it'll greatly speed up the time to get resources that you need. Now, additionally, if you really want to get the max amount of resources without having to do any work, you need to make sure you're stacking up on your deviants. And there's a couple of these that farm materials automatically for you and auto farm them so you don't ever have to mine or chop wood or anything. The first one is going to be the Digby Boy. Now, there's a couple things to mention here. The Digby Boy automatically mines many materials for you. So even when you're offline, he's constantly mining, meaning you get tons of materials just for being offline. You can jump on to play the next day and have 400 or 500 of every single resource per Digby Boy that you have, which is why you should stack as many as possible. Now, you can actually get the Digby Boy by mining tin, iron, magnesium, and tungsten ore at a fairly low chance. So while you're mining, you have the chance to randomly drop one. However, silver ore almost always at this point 100% guarantees you a Digby Boy drop. Now, the best places to farm silver ore currently are right outside of the securement silo Sigma at level 15, and then over here by Myers Market, you can farm more silver ore and tin directly out here just outside of Myers Market as well. There's a ton of tin ore all over the map, and then there's silver ore that looks very similar but is a little bit different. Keep an eye out for this because if you're driving around or whatever, be checking for your silver ore. So you can imagine if you have 5 of these guys, every day you get on, you can have like 2,500 of every material. You will never have to farm again. The other deviant you absolutely need, and you can get a ton of these very easily, is the logging beaver. Now, the logging beaver obviously gives you logs, and he can give you logs at a very quick rate. Again, you can have like 2,000 or 3,000 just from logging on in a new day. So you need to make sure you're stacking these up as well and placing many of them, as well as the Digby Boys, in the securement units. You can farm the logging beavers right over here at Myers Market, all you have to do is teleport to Myers Market, look over at the pier, run right outside the main building, and look outside towards the pier. You can zoom in with a sniper rifle to the end of the pier and look and see if one of the logging beaver deviants is there. They spawn almost continuously, so if you don't see one, go ahead and run back to the teleporter, swap worlds, and that will reset your instance, and you can run right over there and check again. And you can get probably 10 of these very, very quickly just by doing that one little trick. Now, one other thing I want to mention about these deviants, as well as all the deviants in general, is they actually can farm and do things at a much more efficient rate if their mood is actually recharging at a quick rate. So you can see a deviation's crafting and gathering speed and combat performance depends on its mood. And you can see here you get faster recovery of deviant power and mood in an optimized environment, meaning we want to meet these criteria. So for instance, for the logging beaver, we want music playing and we want electricity. We currently set up just one solar generator or one solar panel, as well as a switchable pylon. All you have to do is run the wire from there over to one of these little nodes just to connect it to make it cleaner and drop power right down into the securement unit, and boom, you meet that criteria. The same with the music. You can see we have a radio right here. All you essentially have to do is jump into your build menu, jump over to furniture, and then jump over to the home entertainment tab once you've unlocked that through your memetics, and just create a radio, drop it on the ground and turn it on, and you'll meet that requirement. And a lot of the requirements are very much like that. So again, the Digby Boy also requires light, which you can unlock through your memetics menu as well. You can see we have a red light above them both, meaning we get basically 30% more resources overall. So you want to make sure you're meeting those criteria for your deviants, especially the ones that will be auto farming for you. And finally, one more thing to note about deviants is they actually have traits and skill ratings. So the skill rating, if you get one with a skill rating of more than one, meaning like 2 or 3, they're going to be able to possibly get much higher tier rewards or higher tier materials that they'll bring back to you and potentially farm more efficiently. As well as that the activity rating means the faster that deviant can recover while it's dormant or sitting in the securement silo. So you can see our logging beaver here has a skill rating of 2, meaning our logging beaver is going to work much more efficiently. So if you had a choice between putting this one or another one in there, you want to make sure you put the one with the higher stats in there so it does a better job. But early game, you're going to want to put as many of these in as many securement silos as you can. Also, the deviations have traits, and the more traits it has, the more special abilities it has, meaning the better farming and better combat for combat deviants. Now, early, middle, and even late game, you want to be using the crossbow, as well as always building a melee weapon. This is because the crossbow essentially gives you infinite ammo, so you don't have to farm and waste a lot of time trying to get ammo for your gun, especially early in the game when it's a little bit harder to come by. You can see as long as we get a crossbow here and then go ahead and put some sort of mod on it, and as long as you have the same tier crossbow as the area you're in, you can pretty much one-shot headshot most enemies in the game, meaning you can one-shot them with your arrow, run right back over them and pick it up automatically, and then shoot another enemy and do the same thing, and you will never lose your arrows essentially unless you miss. Again, early on, it's an extremely powerful weapon, requires basically 0 ammo. You can stack up on 20 arrows and essentially go to town and never have to restore or replenish your ammo because you replenish it non-stop. Another thing is you want to make sure you're using your melee weapon non-stop as well, because again, it's extremely powerful early on and keeps you again from using and wasting a lot of ammo and materials early on as well. Now, there are a couple of resources you want to focus on very early. One is going to be hide. And the reason you want to focus on hide is because you need to go out and particularly farm for it every time you see it at the beginning of the game, because a lot of the armor that you have to craft requires you to have rawhide, not only regular untanned rawhide, but rawhide again used for the actual materials itself, meaning you need to have essentially a lot of it. Now, the best place to initially farm hide, if you're in Deadsville, is right down the center strip right here, right past this house, all along this street. There's a ton of deer there, and there's also a ton of deer right outside of Myers Market, right over here in this hilly area. Now, there's a couple things you want to focus on. You want to make sure you get the big deer and not the small deer. The small deer barely ever give you any hide. The big deer almost always give you hide. If you see other things additionally like boar, make sure you kill those because you will also get hide from those. And you want to make sure you get it every chance you get early on so you can stack up plenty and you don't ever have to farm any little bit later in the game. Every time you have to come in here to your workbench and recraft new tiers level gear. Another resource you want to prioritize early is gas. And that's because you actually need need gas, obviously, for your car, and the more you have, so you don't actually run out and have to run around everywhere. The best way to stack up on this is to just drive down the road. There are a couple of different car models you get used to that actually have gas in them all the time. This kind of car model with the barely open trunk, this will almost always have gas and materials. The same goes for cars like that one that look just like your car. Most of the time, those will always have gas in the trunk as well. So you want to make sure you're also stacking up on gas so you don't run out and have to walk all the way across the map, because that's the worst thing ever. So a couple things you want to be aware of in terms of the stats of your character are actually really important. So you're not just focused on keeping your energy and stuff not in the red. There's actually benefits and losses you get from being in certain segments. So for instance, the energy of your character, you can see we want to try and keep it as high as possible, always between 60 and 100%. If you don't, you actually lose HP, you lose melee weapon damage. You can see if we drop to 30 to 60% energy, we lose 200 HP. And then we additionally lose load capacity. For our hydration, again, it's important we keep 60 to 100% because you get 20% sprint speed. Then you get sprint stamina cost minus 50%, meaning we can sprint much longer, so much longer, it's not even funny. And then eventually we start getting down into the complete negatives and our character just becomes slow, which is why you almost always want to have this maxed out. Now, the way our sanity works is you can see this little blue bar right here. For each percent of sanity we've lost, so 6%, it reduces our max HP that we can actually have by 6%. So in order to restore this blue bar worth of HP, you need to take a sanity gummy or something that gets rid of sanity so you can actually restore your maximum health. Now, again, we can take things like sanity gummies. These can be easily crafted on the stove by just using beets and then turning beets into some sugar right here. You can see this is all it really requires: sugar, boiled water, and logs. Again, if you come down here to sugar, you can collect beets from a lot of places in the ground, turn them into sugar, and then make plenty of sanity gummies. And then finally is our load. Now, there's a couple things I want to mention here. Because you're always carrying a bunch of different things on you at once, you obviously want to make sure you stack stuff in your chest. But your load, once you get to 120 to 140% and 140% plus, you lose a lot of speed, a lot of stamina, etc. One of the big notes I want to mention here, you want to make sure you build out an armor storage crate and a weapon storage crate. That way you can actually store armor and weapons in both of these, because you can't store them in normal crates, and it's because a lot of times you're carrying a lot of old armor and a lot of old weaponry. Also, you can go to the disassembly bench, jump over here to the weapons tab or the armor tab, see a lot of your old stuff here, and then come in here and actually disassemble it, so you lose a lot of your weight pretty quickly. So make sure you're checking on getting rid of your old armor and your old gear that you don't need anymore. And this is the last thing that's probably caused me the absolute most pain in Once Human, is building my base. So early on in the game, you don't have to focus that much on what your base design is. You can just build a little shack and stack everything inside of it that you possibly can. But as you begin to level up and start putting a literal ton of things, ton of decorations, ton of everything in your base, you're going to want to go ahead and come up with an actual base design of some sort that works for you. Because once you build your base and have everything inside of it, in order to tear it down and not lose all of your chests, around level 20 or so, you really want to focus on how your base design is going to work and really how you should set it up. Because if you don't, you build this big base that is completely unusable, because later in the game, it does get attacked late game when you generate in-game material. That's kind of part of the mechanics. You essentially put down a stardust resonator, put cores in it, and then it generates stardust, which again, as I mentioned, is an extremely important in-game material. But when you do that, a lot of stuff's going to attack your house. So it needs to be set up at least somewhat defensively and somewhat decent. So you don't set this up around level 20 or so and build a random little shack and just keep adding stuff to your house. To actually rebuild the entire house, you're going to have to rebuild the entire house from the ground up, meaning you're going to have to come out here, you're going to have to place a bunch of squares out, you're going to have to pick up all the things that you've already set up for electricity, move it out here, put it all in a row, then come in here, do that with everything, delete the entire house, and restart all over. It literally can waste hours of your time. And since you watched to the end, a quick bonus tip. Obviously, this is a survival game. Make sure you're using your bed. A lot of people don't know that you can actually use your bed. They think it's just a pretty thing in your house, and it's not. You get a bonus from sleeping in your bed, and you can see it's actually getting rid of some of my sanity here, so that way my health can continue to restore all the way up to full health. If this helped at all, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're on our way to 100,000, and I'll see you guys in the next one.